Have you ever been left staring at your phone, wondering why he suddenly stopped texting back? Why he used to be so attentive, then vanished without warning? You're not alone. But here's the truth. When a man ignores you, it's rarely about you, and almost always about him. This silence isn't strength. It's not confidence. And it's definitely not indifference. It's a smokescreen, a defense mechanism that hides something much deeper, his greatest weakness. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to pull back the emotional curtain and expose what men rarely admit, even to themselves. Because understanding this dynamic isn't just about him. It's about reclaiming your power, your clarity, and your peace of mind. And no, this isn't about playing games or begging for attention. This is about recognizing the psychological patterns that keep you stuck in confusion, and finally breaking free from them. Most women are taught to analyze their own behavior when a man pulls away. Did I say too much? Was I too available? Maybe I pushed him away. But what if the real answer has nothing to do with what you did, and everything to do with what he's afraid to feel? If you're tired of second guessing, if you're done chasing clarity from someone who refuses to give it, then this video is for you. Because once you understand his silence for what it truly is, you'll stop feeling powerless and start feeling in control again. Keep watching. What you're about to hear will change the way you look at this situation forever. When a man ignores you, it can feel like the world suddenly shifts beneath your feet. 1 minute there's connection and communication, and the next, silence. That silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a powerful message. But what exactly does it mean when a man ignores you? First, it's important to recognize that ignoring someone is a choice. It's not random or accidental. When a man chooses silence, it's often because he's trying to protect himself from something, whether it's confusion, fear, guilt, or emotional overwhelm. Ignoring can be a shield to avoid confrontation, vulnerability, or responsibility. It's easier for some men to disappear than to engage honestly with the complexities of feelings. But that doesn't mean his silence is always about you. Sometimes it reflects him, his own emotional limitations or insecurities. Many men haven't been taught how to express difficult feelings. When emotions rise, rather than lean in and talk through them, some retreat into silence because they don't know what else to do. Ignoring you might also be a form of control. In some cases, withdrawing attention creates a dynamic where you chase, try harder, or feel uncertain. That uncertainty can shift the balance of power, at least temporarily, because it leaves you reaching for answers he's unwilling to give. It's a silent game of emotional push and pull. And while it might make him feel like he's in control, it really reveals a lack of emotional courage. Another possibility is that ignoring you is his way of processing. He might need space to sort out his feelings, figure out what he wants, or simply step back from the intensity of the moment. This kind of silence can be temporary and isn't necessarily a sign of rejection, but it's critical that it doesn't turn into a pattern of avoidance. On the other hand, sometimes ignoring means he's pulling away because his interest is fading, or because he's emotionally checked out. In those cases, silence is a clear boundary. It's his way of signaling, without words, that he's no longer invested. While painful, this form of ignoring is at least honest in its own way. Ultimately, what ignoring means depends on context and on how he's ignoring you. Is he ghosting completely or just quieter than usual? Does he avoid you in person, but still reach out online? Is this sudden behavior or a pattern? For you, the most important thing is to pay attention not just to the silence itself, but what it does to you. Does it make you feel anxious, undervalued, or confused? Then it's a red flag. Ignoring is never a healthy communication style in relationship. If he respects you, he will communicate even if it's uncomfortable. Remember, you deserve honesty, respect, and clarity. When a man ignores you, it might mean a lot of things, but it never means you're not worth the conversation. When a man ignores you, it's tempting to assume he's just cold or disinterested. But what if his silence is actually a sign of his greatest weakness, the emotional struggle he's desperately trying to hide? The truth is, ignoring someone isn't a sign of strength. It's often a shield built from fear, insecurity, and vulnerability he doesn't know how to handle. Many men have been conditioned to believe that showing emotions is a weakness. From a young age, they're taught to suppress feelings, keep a strong facade, and avoid anything that feels too emotional or too soft. So when real connection or vulnerability enters the picture, it can trigger deep discomfort. That discomfort is not a sign of detachment. It's a sign of emotional immaturity. His silence may be less about you and more about his internal battle. He might be overwhelmed by feelings he can't express, confused about what he wants, or afraid of opening himself up to potential rejection. Instead of communicating, he withdraws, hoping to keep those feelings buried. This avoidance reveals his emotional weakness, not his indifference. In many cases, ignoring you is a way for him to protect his fragile ego. If he fears he's not enough, whether emotionally, financially, or in other ways, then stepping back feels safer than risking exposure. He hides behind silence because confrontation or honest conversation feels like a threat to his self-image. This emotional weakness also shows up as fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability means risking rejection, failure, or judgment. For someone who hasn't developed emotional resilience, that risk feels unbearable, so he chooses silence over honesty. What's important to understand is that his silence is a defense mechanism, not a declaration of how much he values you. It's a sign that he's struggling inside, even if he doesn't admit it to himself. And because he can't manage his emotions healthily, he inadvertently causes pain and confusion by ignoring you. Recognizing this hidden weakness is powerful. It helps you stop blaming yourself and realize that his silence is more about his limitations than your worth. You're not the problem. His emotional unavailability is. However, this also means that if you want clarity or respect, you need to look for a man willing to face his emotions head-on, not run from them. Emotional strength isn't about shutting down, it's about showing up, even when it's hard. So next time you find yourself wondering why he's ignoring you, remember, beneath the silence is not strength, but fear. And while you can't fix his weakness for him, you can protect your heart by refusing to accept silence as an answer. Understanding why a man chooses silence when he ignores you requires a look into male psychology. For many men, silence is not just a lack of words, it's a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from emotional discomfort and vulnerability. In male psychology, communication styles often differ from those of women. Men are frequently socialized to prioritize action over emotion, to solve problems rather than discuss feelings, and to avoid appearing weak. When emotions become overwhelming or complicated, many men instinctively retreat into silence because that feels safer than risking emotional exposure. Silence as a defense serves several psychological purposes. First, it helps him avoid confrontation. When faced with emotional conflict, expressing himself might feel risky, especially if he fears rejection or judgment. Staying silent means he can control the narrative by withholding information and preventing deeper discussion. It's a way to maintain control, even if that control is ultimately an illusion. Second, silence shields him from emotional overload. Unlike women, who often find relief in talking through feelings, men may experience discussions about emotions as draining or destabilizing. Silence allows him to process internally, in his own time and space, without the pressure to respond immediately. Third, silence can be a way to manage uncertainty. If he's confused about his feelings or unsure about the relationship, withdrawing can give him room to sort through his thoughts. It's a pause, a mental reset. But the problem arises when this pause turns into prolonged avoidance, leaving you in emotional limbo. This defense mechanism is deeply rooted in societal expectations and gender norms. Boys are often taught to man up, to hide vulnerability, and to be stoic. As a result, many men grow up equating silence with strength, not realizing that true strength is found in honest communication and emotional openness. It's important to understand that silence doesn't always mean disinterest or lack of care. In some cases, he might be battling internal conflicts or personal struggles that make talking difficult. His silence is less about you and more about his own emotional limitations. However, silence can become damaging when it's used to avoid accountability or to manipulate. When a man uses silence to punish, control, or confuse, it's a red flag. Emotional withdrawal as a weapon is a sign of immaturity and insecurity. For you, recognizing silence as a defense allows you to separate his behavior from your self-worth. It's not your job to break through his walls or decode every quiet moment. Instead, you can set boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. In relationships, communication is a two-way street. If silence dominates, it's a sign that either the man isn't ready to engage or the dynamic is unhealthy. Real emotional connection requires vulnerability from both partners. Ultimately, understanding silence as a defense is the first step towards seeing the man behind the behavior. It reveals not strength, but fear and avoidance. the very weaknesses the title of this video points to. And knowing this empowers you to demand the respect and clarity you deserve. When a man ignores you, it's natural to wonder, does he still care? Silence feels like rejection, distance like indifference. But the truth isn't always so black and white. Often the greatest weakness of a man who ignores you is that he does care, deeply, but doesn't know how to show it. Caring doesn't always come wrapped in words or actions. Sometimes it hides in the quiet spaces, in subtle signs that only someone paying close attention can catch. When a man pulls away yet still watches your stories, reacts to your posts, or remembers small details about your life, those are signals. They reveal that despite the distance, you remain important to him. He might not say "I miss you," but he'll remember your favorite song or send a random message at 2 a.m. These small gestures often fly under the radar, but reveal emotional ties that silence tries to mask. You'll notice hesitation when you interact, an awkward pause, a softened tone, or eyes that flicker with something unspoken. He's not indifferent, he's conflicted. Caring while guarding his pride creates a silent battle inside him, one that often ends in withdrawal instead of conversation. Sometimes his care shows up in protective ways. He might ignore you because he's scared of hurting you or himself. His silence could be an attempt to shield you both from disappointment or conflict. It's flawed, but it comes from a place of concern. But care alone isn't enough. A man who truly values you won't let silence become a habit. The real test is whether he takes steps to bridge the gap or keeps hiding behind walls. Caring without action is a painful limbo that leaves you stuck waiting for a connection that may never come. If he still cares, those hidden signs will eventually surface, if only briefly. It might be a sudden text out of nowhere, a question from a friend, or a moment of vulnerability. These glimpses show that his feelings are still alive, even if buried. Yet it's crucial to distinguish between caring and emotional availability. Some men care but can't or won't express it healthily. Their silence is not love, it's fear and confusion disguised as distance. Recognizing this helps you avoid mistaking their withholding for genuine connection. Ultimately, does he still care? Often yes, but does he show it in ways that matter? That's the real question. You deserve someone who not only cares but shows up fully, communicates honestly, and refuses to hide behind silence. Knowing this gives you power, not just to interpret his actions, but to decide what you will accept. Because caring without presence is a weakness, and silence without explanation is a boundary. And you deserve a love that speaks clearly, loudly, and openly. When a man ignores you, it's easy to feel powerless, like you're stuck waiting for him to decide if you're worth his attention. But here's the truth. You have the power to flip the script. Silence doesn't have to be his weapon against you. It can become your leverage reach. Reclaim control and demand the respect you deserve. The first step in this power shift is recognizing that his silence says more about his weaknesses than your worth. When he pulls away, it's because he's wrestling with fears, insecurities, or confusion. Your job is not to chase or fix him, but to stand firm in your own value. When you do that, silence loses its grip over you. Leverage starts with emotional independence. The more you rely on his attention for your happiness, the more control he has. But when you focus on your own growth, passions, and self-love, you send a clear message. You won't wait around for someone who can't show up. This mindset is magnetic. It challenges his narrative and forces him to reconsider what he's risking by staying silent. Next, set boundaries around communication. Silence can be a form of manipulation, a silent punishment designed to make you feel anxious and uncertain. Refuse to accept this behavior as normal. Let him know that silence without explanation is unacceptable. You're not demanding constant attention, but you do expect respect and clarity. When you hold this boundary firmly, it shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, it's no longer about his silence, it's about his choice to respect or lose you. Another powerful strategy is to control your reaction. Silence can trigger anxiety, overthinking, and self-doubt. But when you respond with calm confidence instead of desperation, you take back the emotional power. Don't flood him with messages or try to decode every quiet moment. Instead, focus on what you can control: your feelings, your actions, your worth. Use the silence to your advantage by redirecting your energy toward yourself. Engage in activities that boost your confidence and bring you joy. Build a support network that reminds you of your value. When you thrive in spite of his silence, you shift the power balance. He begins to see what he's missing. Remember, leverage isn't about playing games or punishing him. It's about reclaiming your dignity and refusing to be diminished by his absence. It's about making it clear that your worth is not negotiable, and silence won't erase that truth. Finally, know when to walk away. If his silence continues despite your boundaries and self-empowerment, it's a sign that he's not ready or willing to meet you half. Your greatest power is in choosing yourself over uncertainty. Turning silence into leverage isn't easy. It requires strength, patience, and self-respect. But once you master it, you reclaim your voice, your power, and your peace of mind. And that's the greatest weakness he fears losing. When a man pulls away or starts ignoring you, it's natural to feel hurt, confused, and desperate for answers. But how you respond in these moments can make all the difference between healing and heartbreak. Unfortunately, many fall into the trap of making mistakes that only push him further away, or worse, damage their own self-worth. Knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. One of the biggest mistakes is chasing him relentlessly. Constant texting, calling, or showing up uninvited might feel like you're proving your love or commitment, but it usually backfires. Instead of drawing him closer, it creates pressure and reinforces his need to pull back. It can come across as needy or desperate, which chips away at your dignity and makes you more vulnerable to emotional pain. Another common pitfall is overanalyzing every word and action. When he pulls away, it's easy to obsess over what you said, what he did, or why he's acting differently. This mental spiral fuels anxiety and confusion, leading to self-blame or wild assumptions. But the truth is often simpler. His behavior reflects his own struggles, not your shortcomings. Don't torture yourself trying to decode every silence or message. A third mistake is lowering your standards or ignoring red flags, just to keep him around. Sometimes when faced with distance, people overlook disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional unavailability in the hope that things will improve. This only sets a dangerous precedent. Accepting less than you deserve doesn't fix the relationship, it erodes your self-respect. It's also crucial to avoid bottling up your feelings. Pretending everything is fine or suppressing your hurt might seem like the strong thing to do, but it only builds resentment and confusion. Honest communication when possible is key. Expressing your feelings clearly, calmly, and respectfully sets a foundation for understanding, or at the very least, closure. Many also make the mistake of waiting passively for him to come back, putting your life on hold or refusing to engage with your own goals. While waiting for his attention traps you in a cycle of dependency. Your happiness and growth should never hinge on someone else's choices. Taking active steps to nurture yourself is not just self-care, it's reclaiming your power. Another trap is trying to change him. You might think if you push hard enough, give enough love, or act differently, he'll open up or stop ignoring you. But change has to come from within. Trying to force it only leads to frustration and disappointment. Finally, avoid ignoring your intuition. If you feel consistently disrespected, confused, or undervalued, listen to that gut feeling. It's your internal compass guiding you toward what's healthy and what isn't. Instead of falling into these traps, focus on setting boundaries, nurturing self-love, and maintaining clear communication. Remember, a man who truly values you won't leave you guessing or make silence the norm. Avoiding these mistakes protects your heart, preserves your dignity, and opens the door for healthier, more fulfilling connections, whether with him or someone better. When a man ignores you or pulls away, it can feel like an emotional assault. Your first instinct might be to reach out, explain yourself, or beg for answers, but in doing so, it's easy to lose sight of your own worth. The key to navigating these painful moments is learning how to respond without losing self-respect. Self-respect is your foundation. It's the invisible boundary that protects your heart from being trampled on by silence, mixed signals, or emotional games. When you respond from a place of respect for yourself, you send a powerful message, not just to him, but to yourself, that you will not tolerate disrespect or uncertainty. The first step is to pause and breathe before reacting. Emotional responses, fueled by hurt or anxiety, often lead to desperate or needy behavior. Give yourself the space to process your feelings before responding. This pause creates clarity and prevents you from saying things you might regret later. Next, choose your words carefully. You don't owe anyone explanations for your feelings, but honest communication is important. When you do speak, keep it calm, clear and concise. Avoid accusatory language or emotional outbursts. Instead, express your needs and boundaries firmly but kindly. For example, I value clear communication and would appreciate honesty about where we stand. Importantly, don't chase after answers that aren't given. If he continues to ignore you or gives vague responses, resist the temptation to demand explanations or make excuses for his behavior. Accept that sometimes silence is a choice, and one that reflects more on his emotional availability than your worth. Maintaining self-respect also means setting firm boundaries. If silence or avoidance becomes a pattern, let him know what you will and won't accept. This could mean deciding not to initiate contact for a set time, or stating that you expect respect and communication in any relationship. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're declarations of your value. Another vital aspect is focusing on your own well-being. Rather than obsessing over why he's ignoring you or what he might be thinking, invest your energy in yourself. Spend time with friends, pursue your passions, and nurture your mental and emotional health. When you prioritize yourself, you become less dependent on his attention and more magnetic because of it. Remember, responding without losing self-respect isn't about playing hard to get or manipulation. It's about honoring your feelings, protecting your heart, and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It's the difference between reacting out of fear and responding from a place of strength. Lastly, be prepared to walk away if necessary. Sometimes the most self-respecting response is to let go when silence becomes silence without explanation. Leaving space for someone who can't meet your needs is an act of courage and self-love. By mastering how to respond with dignity, you reclaim your power in a situation where silence once made you feel powerless. You show that your worth isn't defined by his attention, but by your unwavering respect for yourself. And that's the greatest weakness of a man who ignores you. As we wrap up, it's important to remember that being ignored by a man isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of his emotional weaknesses. Silence, avoidance, and withdrawal are not signs of strength. They are defenses masking fear, confusion, or immaturity. Understanding this truth gives you power. You no longer have to wonder, why me, or feel trapped by his silence. The greatest weakness of a man who ignores you isn't his ability to disappear, it's his inability to face vulnerability and communicate honestly. And while that may leave you feeling frustrated or hurt, it's also an opportunity for growth. You get to decide how you respond. Do you allow silence to diminish your self-worth, or do you reclaim your power by setting clear boundaries and honoring your feelings? Your next steps are simple but profound. First, focus on yourself. Invest time in your passions, surround yourself with supportive people, and nurture your emotional health. When you build a strong foundation of self-love and confidence, silence loses its power over you. Second, set firm boundaries in your relationships. Silence without explanation is unacceptable. You deserve clarity and respect. If a man chooses to ignore you, let that be his loss, not your pain. Third, practice patience with yourself. Healing takes time. It's okay to feel hurt, confused, or angry, but never let those feelings keep you stuck. Use them as fuel to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Lastly, remember that true connection requires honesty and vulnerability from both sides. If someone cannot meet you there, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a sign to move forward. Your happiness depends on mutual respect and open communication, not on chasing silence. You have everything it takes to turn this experience into a stepping stone for a healthier, happier future. Embrace your worth, trust your instincts, and never settle for less than you deserve. Thank you for watching and investing in yourself today. Remember, the greatest weakness of a man who ignores you is also your greatest opportunity to rise.